today, and then we have a great speaker today. And for running this session, let me introduce you. It's my great honor to introduce you, Molalet, as the moderator. Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. I would like to welcome colleagues for this media briefing. We are joined by today Mr. Harsan Nyambe. He's the Director for Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy at the African Union Commission. And with him, we have Mr. Gatkot Kai. He's a coordinator for disaster risk reduction within the African Union Commission. So we will be briefed by the director and then the coordinator regarding the Africa's participation on the seventh session of Global Platform Conference, and some updates on the African multi-hazard early warning and action system. He will also touch up on some, the status on the Sunday framework and then Africans' political and financial commitment in that perspective. Then we will have some question and answer session afterwards. Director, over to you.
Thank you very much for according us this opportunity. In terms of disasters, we are looking at them, from a perspective of sustainable development. We feel that they are actually pulling us back in terms of meeting the targets of our development agenda, which is Agenda 2063. And we have also observed, based on our own assessment, that these disasters, they seem to be increasing in terms of intensity as well as frequency. And as such, there's a need for us to intensify our efforts in making sure that our development is resilient to some of these disasters. But of course, we are not able to prevent disasters. So what we have done is that we have put in place frameworks that are aimed at enhancing our capacity to address disasters or to prevent or at least prepare for them. And one of such is actually the POA, Program of Action, which is aimed at facilitating the implementation of the Sendai framework. We also have a strategy that is supposed to help the continent on how to address issues of disasters. And more recently also, we have come up with a strategy for climate change and resilient development, as well as a strategy for an integrated strategy for meteorology for the continent. So basically, all these frameworks are supposed to be providing capacity or enabling us to be able to address some of these challenges. And recently we have also gone further than that to also establish the multi-hazard early warning system and early action, because we have realized that responding to disasters is not enough and it's more costly. It's therefore better if we are able to anticipate, or if we are able to alert our communities or society about pending disasters or looming disasters rather, so that they can be able to prepare. And in such a manner, we should be able to reduce the impact of such disasters. And from our end as a continent, we feel that there's strong political will, as demonstrated by these frameworks that have been put in place. And of course, we face also a few challenges, some of them being those related to budgets, because we get more funding from partners than from member states. But I mean, that's a process, because this is a new program for us. It's relatively new compared to other programs. And of late, actually, it's receiving more attention. For example, during the February AU summit, they actually appointed, for the first time in our history, a champion who is going to be overseeing issues of disaster risk management, and that's His Excellency, the President of Mozambique. And I think that's a clear demonstration that we take disasters seriously. But also because of their link to climate change, we also have a committee of heads of states that is responsible for issues of climate change. And again, that's a token of taking these issues seriously. So in a nutshell, I think that's where I can stop and ask my colleague Kai to take over from there.
And thank you, Director. Also building upon that, we came to this platform with a very active delegation of our member states, and we have a clear position to the global platform, the Africa position to the global platform, which is driven by our member states. This platform highlights our interest as a continent, one of the commitments that we have committed ourselves, and that also need to be reflected in the outcome document, are issues of multi-hazard early warning systems and issues of recovery from COVID, but also issues of investment, particularly domestic financing. We also highlight a number of areas with regard to the common position, and that include issues of risk governance and risk knowledge. We believe this platform has highlighted some of the challenges that we are also facing on the continent. In recent years, we have seen systemic risk in action. We have seen how COVID-19 coexist with other hazards such as flood, drought, polar worm, desert locust invasion, and even sometimes the epidemics, other epidemics. So this really requires that we need to take issues of systemic risk very seriously, but also important that, that this platform has highlighted the issues of transboundary risk in nature, and we have seen that on the continent where this is becoming a challenge, where you have one hazard cutting across several regions or countries. And I think these issues came out quite clearly. Topping really the list from this platform, and which is in line with our commitment, is the announcement of the Secretary General of the United Nations that we need to ensure, he's committed to ensure that everybody on Earth is reached with early warning messages by in the next 5 years. This is in line with the African Union commitment. The multi-hazard early warning program aims to ensure comprehensive coverage for early warning on the continent by 2030. So we feel that really key issues that are being discussed here are a reflection of the reality of the discussion back home. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you very much, Mr. Kai. Now I will open the floor for question and answer session. Colleagues, you introduce yourself first and then you ask your question.
Hello, my name is Dicta Asimwe. I'm a freelance journalist. I have a question one question on multi-hazard early warning systems. I feel like those have already been established. Am I correct? For example, I know about ICPAC. I don't know about other regions. My question here is, what else do you think is missing in terms of multi-hazard early warning systems? My second question is, the director talked a lot about political will, but wouldn't political will include willingness to finance? Like, wouldn't demonstration of political will be demonstrated with willingness to finance the programs you're talking about? I mean, I come from Uganda, and where I come from, they say that Uganda knows how to pass good policies that they never implement. Isn't it that you find passing policies easy, and like you can go through the emotions of pretending to do something while not actually doing anything, and that's what motivates the passing of these policies. Thank you.
Director?
Thank you very much. I'll respond to the political will, and my colleague Kai will respond to the other one. Indeed, they have actually adequately demonstrated political will. And what I mean by that is for the fact that we did not have a disaster risk reduction as part of the structure or establishment of the African Union Commission. And for the first time, now we have got a unit on the structure that is actually addressing issues of disasters, and also those positions are funded by member states, permanent positions. And I think that's a very sign or a signal that they are committed. Thank you.
Before we developed the multi-hazard early warning program, we undertook a comprehensive study looking at the baseline of the state of multi-hazard early warning system in Africa. That was last year in 2021. One of the key outcomes is that no single African country is meeting requirement for multi-hazard early warning systems based on international standard. And it was the basis of that we developed this comprehensive program on multi-hazard early warning systems. So the program is in the first phase, that is the pilot phase. And we have now a continental multi-hazard early warning situation room at AU headquarters in Addis Ababa. We have regional disaster operations center in Nairobi for IGAD countries. And we have climate advisory situation room in West Africa, in Niamey, Nigeria. These are the three multi-hazard situation rooms that we have now on the continent. The next phase is to ensure that all our sub-regions and all our member states have a state-of-the-art situation room. So it's a work in progress. What you may have seen are single hazard early warning systems, which are quite widespread. Even in one country, you may have early warning system for floods, early warning for drought, early warning for epidemics, but these are sitting in separate ministries. They are not multi-hazard. And the challenge with that is it becomes very difficult to coordinate. So the approach we are now trying to put in place, based on the Sendai framework, is that we need to move toward a multi-hazard early warning mechanism.
Another question, please.
Yeah, my name is Alfred Tumba. I'm a journalist from Congo. I would like to speak in French, but I try to speak in English. There is an African Union project that should help Central African countries to build their resilience. Burundi with the floods, Congo with the volcanoes, but nothing is done so far. I would like to know, where are you with this project? Another question is, the African Union seems to multiply political speech, but on the ground we do not see much. Should you not change your approach? Thank you.
Director.
Thank you very much. To respond to your question, we have to understand that building resilience cannot be done by one project. For example, even if you have got a disaster risk reduction program, it will not build resilience. You need to have an approach where you build resilience in multiple sectors, basically. So it means that for you to build resilience, for example, in the, say, construction industry, the government or so, they need to make sure that they put policies in place to make sure that the buildings also meet standards. certain standards that have to do with resilience. The agricultural sector also has to build resilience. Energy sector. So it's a transformation of the entire development as far as we are concerned. So there's no way that AU, for example, African Union can build resilience, for example, in the Congo Basin or, for example, in the DRC. So it's a process that should be spearheaded by the government. That's one. For us at our level, we develop policies, we deal with coordinations, we deal with the monitoring mechanisms and so forth. We also mobilize resources to support member states so that they will be able to implement or translate those plans into reality. So what I'm trying to say is that the government has a responsibility. And then secondly, the regional economic community, for example, Central Africa, ECAS, which is Central African countries, they have their own regional economic community. They also have to play a role. So AU, it's at a much higher level, which deals mainly with policies. And then we have got ECAS, we'll have to work with ECAS, and then ECAS will have to work with the member state itself. But also in addition to that, for us, we also implement through NEPAD, AUDA NEPAD. You may have heard of that. So they are the ones who have the mandate to implement right in the country. Otherwise, for us, we end somewhere. But despite that, we have got programs such as what is called Global Climate Alliance Plus, which is contributing towards that. We have got the one for disaster, which is which my colleague is heading. That deals with natural disasters. We have got programs such as the ones for meteorology, which are also contributing towards that. And under agriculture also, we have got what is called CADIP. They've got a resilience component, which is also contributing towards that. And in health, they are also contributing towards issues of resilience. Thank you very much.
Okay, you want to add?
Yeah, also building on Director, 4 years ago, the Central Africa region had no climate center. The AU program, one of the AU program, helped establish a center in Douala. Now the region has climate center that is effective. So there is a lot of work that is going on. Perhaps we are not talking too much to the media, but we can try our best, but there is a lot of continental programs that are ongoing.
Over here.
So, I have to stand up. Okay. Hi, my name is Jenna Bosonko, and I work with QTV Gambia. So my question has to do with the involvement of young people and women. You know, how gender sensitive are you, and how often do you have projects or ensure that young people effectively participate when it comes to issues as such, considering that these two demographics are quite marginalized?
Maybe let's take another question from him and then you respond.
Thank you very much for the presentation. My first question is on the loss and damage issue. We are going to host the COP27 as Africa, and I would like to know if at all here you have had to push anything else around loss and damage issues, because there have been calls that we need more money, but we haven't really come up with a clear direction as Africa on how best we can continue to push this agenda. Secondly, there is also a feeling that most African countries are not doing good in as far as reporting on the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction is concerned through the Sendai monitor. What are you doing as an AU to make sure that there is an improvement in terms of the way African countries are reporting? But if there is information gap on our part, we'd like to appreciate how many countries have been able to continuously report via the Sendai framework, and what is the outlook like. The last question perhaps will be on the issue of the early warning system commitment, indeed, which has been raised by the DSG yesterday or during the opening ceremony, how are you going to make sure that as Africa, you take your on the right trajectory to make sure this is done? Will you be waiting for the UN and others to give direction, or you think you're already on track and you just need to strengthen some areas? And how do you plan to do these things? Thank you very much indeed.
Director, over to you.
Thank you. The issue of women and youth are actually pertinent to the programs of AU, in the sense that we have got policies that are supposed to promote women as well as youth. And even when it comes to issues of employment, you know, there's a deliberate move to make sure that more women and more youth are actually taken on board. And we have got a directorate that is for youth and women, you know, to demonstrate indeed that it's a priority area. And in the area of DRR, there's actually an advisory group for the youth. But also, just to inform you that in climate change, we also make efforts. For example, during the COPs, we sponsor women as well as youth to also participate, because we know that in terms of representation, they are actually not as many as we would want them to be, you know, during those COPs. But let me pass on to my colleague Kai to address some of the other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. We share the note. Hope I will remember them. In terms of reporting on the Sendai monitor, I would say we made progress compared to the past 4 years when we started it. And thanks to the technology, we have learned during COVID that virtual discussion are effective. So we have been holding almost like every month series of training with member states to start reporting on the Sendai monitor. In 2020, there were only 4 countries that reported on the Sendai monitor. But today, that number has increased to over 10 of them, and this is encouraging. But more work is being done to ensure that countries are reporting on the Sendai monitor. So it's a work in progress. Regarding the announcement by the UN Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, I would say the Africa had a vision already, and I think they got us moving. The announcement was 3 weeks ago. Our head of state have adopted the Africa framework for multi-hazard early warning system in February. So Africa has clear vision on how to deliver multi-hazard early warning system right even before the announcement of the Secretary General. So we are already moving, and what we are calling for is that such announcements need to build on African initiatives. It need to build on the early warning program that we have. It need to build on existing initiatives at country level as well as regional levels. Thank you.
Let us take the final round of questions.
Thank you. There was a question about loss and damage. On loss and damage, Africa has a position that has been very consistent. We feel that we are victims in the whole climate change arena. As such, we feel that for these floods, for example, which are driven by climate change, that are actually, for example, destroying our infrastructure, you know, we are losing lives and so forth, taking us decades back in terms of development. We feel that we deserve to be compensated for that, because it's not a situation of our own making. However, the negotiations have been very difficult, and developed countries have not been wanting to buy into that because they know it will cost them a lot. But otherwise, our position is consistent, and most of these challenges related to disasters or financing disasters could actually, financing the issue of mitigating disasters could actually be addressed through this window for loss and damage if that goes through. So we are consistent. We still want that loss and damage, but of course it's not easy to get this approved or endorsed at the COP level. I submit.
Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Simwe, a journalist at Uganda Broadcasting Corporation in Uganda. I feel so good that the UNDR office listed my country as one of the best performing in the implementation of the Sendai framework. Basing on GP 2022's theme, Risk to Resilience, my question is about the relocation plan of DR victims. I'll give you an example. If you've ever been to Uganda or you're a Ugandan, Kasese district has been one of the mostly affected DR districts, but it feels like nothing so much done as far as the relocation plan of the victims is concerned. People are roaming. Yes, you've given them food, but do they have shelter? Do they have wash facilities as the AU? Is there any future program at the AU that aims at tackling this, or is an individual member country's responsibility? Thank you.
Over to you.
Okay. Well, issues of relocation of a victim of disasters is a discussion that is very complex. It's not only Uganda. People that are displaced have cultural attachment to their own territories, and moving them sometimes is cumbersome. And I think this is the case also for Bududa in Uganda. The government has planned to, the office of the Prime Minister, have planned to convert some of the areas into ecosystem, to plantations, to conserve the environment and move the communities somewhere else. I think the government of Uganda has a very clear plan for Bududa. They have started it. And if you have more questions, I think the Uganda delegation is quite happy here. They are represented by the minister. But I think they are in the right track, ensuring that the victim of Bududa area are relocated. But the cultural issues are also some of the challenges they are facing.
Thank you. And also at the AU level, we have got a directorate or a department actually that deals with the migration issues and displacement and so forth. Unfortunately, there's also some fragmentation within the AU, so that doesn't squarely fall under us. So we deal with disaster issues. We also have another department that deals with humanitarian issues, so that's the challenge. But otherwise, for us, we set policies that member states are supposed to follow, basically. Thank you.
You still want to go?
Yeah, so my question is like a follow-up question. You talked about policies and that are in place in relation to the involvement of women and young people, but activists say, this is fake. These are just policies that are there. But when it comes to sitting on the table to make the right choices and decisions, young people and women really are not involved. What do you have to say in relation to that? And again, the integration of disaster risk education in school curriculums, is the African Union working towards that? Because I know in the Gambia, UNESCO is supporting the Gambia to integrate disaster risk education in the school curriculum, which is currently under review. Is this so in other countries as well? Because if you want to tackle issues as such, it is important to start from the grassroots. Thanks.
In your app, in your mobile, there is an app. It's called No DRR. no disaster risk reduction. There is an app that was developed by the Africa Youth Advisory Board. The Youth Advisory Board was developed through a policy action, but they are walking the talk, and they are changing a lot of perception on disaster risk reduction. The first few weeks of the pandemic in Africa, the Youth Advisory Board came up with 10, what they call the 10 key messages. And they developed those 10 key messages to promote awareness in African public about the pandemic. And in 1 month, they reached about 10,000 people. So there is a lot of work that the youth are doing. And recently, we have commissioned a study on the scale of youth intervention in Africa at grassroots, national, up to regional levels. The report will be out very soon, and it will be available online. So there is several initiatives, really, that the youth are working on, and the African Union is supporting that process. And we currently have a project that will support the Africa Youth Advisory Board to undertake empowerment of African youth on disaster risk reduction, and it has already started.
Thank you. It's actually important to point out the fact that disaster risk reduction is just a small element within our programs for the African Union. So women are actually, or the needs of women are addressed in various other programs. For example, in agriculture, there's what is called retiring the hoe to the museum. It's a project whereby we are encouraging governments to make sure that agriculture becomes mechanized to avoid too much labor from the women, because most of agriculture is done by women. And then in blue economy, we are trying to make sure that women are also supported, because most of them, they tend to be traders in terms of fish, as an example. Fishermen will be men, but they are the ones actually taking the fish and taking all the risks, to make sure they sell those fish. But at the same time, we have got a strategy that was actually developed under agriculture about reducing post-harvest losses, because most of them, their products end up becoming bad because before they reach to the markets, because they don't have refrigerators and so forth. So all I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of programs and initiatives that are aimed at empowering women. Thank you very much.
I think, sorry, you have another one? On what?
Okay. Well, that is a very good question, because issues of disaster risk reduction or risk in general are issues of perception. And to change perception, you need to start behavioral change from young age. So we have one of our targets by 2030 is mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction in education curriculum, both primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Already this work is taking place in Uganda. In Eastern Africa region, they now have regional guidelines for mainstreaming disaster risk reduction in education. SADC is doing the same, the Southern Africa region, and Central Africa as well as started, and West Africa. So this is one of our goals, and is a work in progress as well.
I can't say any more hands, so thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Mr. Kai, for this important press conference, and colleagues. I would like to thank you for participating on this press conference. And then for those who would like to have one-on-one interview, the Director and the Coordinator is available until the end of this platform. Now, I thank you and have a good night.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the conference for the second day and featuring African Union Commission. Thank you very much once again for ladies and gentlemen. And next press conference will be by Indonesian Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy shortly. Thank you. Goodbye for now.